This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Day one of pre-agency. Yes, pre-agency. If you don't know, the next 2 days you will hear free agency news drop, but that's because it is what they call legal tampering period for the NFL free agency period, which means that they're allowed to talk and kind of make things official without getting in trouble, but things will get made official. Things will be fully opened up by Wednesday. So this is pre-agency. And I always say this, and I will continue to say this. The Browns are never going to be one of those teams as long as Andrew Berry's the general manager and as long as they're at this part of a rebuild that is going to sign like 5 guys in pre-agency, right? Like they're not going to be the team like the Jaguars. They did like 14 transactions or something like that in just today alone. Like the second that deadline dropped, they were gone. The Browns don't really move that way. And I think that's a really good thing that we should appreciate, because teams that are really active in this part of free agency, they tend to be the teams that overpay. Right? Because this is the period for overpaying, for getting those big deals out to your clients and all of these things. So the Browns, who are a team that aren't going to really be thirsty to spend a ton of money on the first couple of days of pre-agency, they're not going to be big spenders in this period. The Browns like to set a number. They'll let people know what that number is. They're not gonna budge off that number. They're not gonna overpay off that number. And once they get that number where they feel that number is, they'll wait for you to come back down to it if you're not there, right? So, Christian Wilkins is a good example. He's somebody that the Browns had a lot of interest in, but the Browns did not end up getting him. He ended up going to the Raiders, which I think all the places he could have ended up, that's as close to a win without getting him as you can get, because Houston was the other team that was heavily connected to him as well. But he got $27.5 million a year in base salary for the Raiders. I believe the Browns were willing to go as high as maybe 24, 25. But after 24, 25, they're not going to be willing to overpay to bring a defensive player onto the roster. And I think that's fair, right? Like $27.5 million, you're talking about Myles Garrett money for Christian Wilkins, and then that resets what Myles Garrett gets. It would just start a domino effect. I think it got a little bit too rich for the Browns' blood there, so they decided, okay, we'll fall back off of that one. They also lost Anthony Walker. Now, this one was expected. We all felt like Anthony Walker's time with the Cleveland Browns had come up, not because he's a bad player or anything, just because Sione Takitaki can handle the mic responsibilities, and JOK is also set to handle the mic responsibilities. So not only do you have a starter in JOK, you have a backup in Sione Takitaki, and I think they'll try to bring him back. Like if they prioritize bringing back a linebacker, it would be Sione Takitaki more so than Anthony Walker. But also to note, Sione Takitaki is still a free agent as we speak. Now, I waited to record this video till I was like closer to 6 o'clock. So if it's dropping later for you or later than what you're used to, blame Andrew Berry. I have been waiting for something to drop because I know something's going to drop during this period. And I don't want to put a video out recapping day one of free agency and then 5 minutes after it's uploaded, it's completely outdated. So trying to do this the best way possible so this video can at least make it to tomorrow, right? Now, some news about the Browns bringing guys back Jordan Schultz reports that the Browns are bringing back Za'Darius Smith on a 2-year, $23.5 million deal with an upside of 25. So there's some incentives in here. This is a fine deal for Zadarius Smith. This is about what you should pay for Zadarius, right? We all were thinking about 12 for Zadarius. Maybe if the market wasn't great for him, it would drop, but the market evidently was pretty good for Za'Darius Smith. So the Browns decide to bring him back at that number, 2-year deal, 23.5. I would love to see how they structure this out to see what the hits are going to be. But we'll find that information out as the days go on. But bringing back Za'Darius Smith, I think that's a very solid move. You had one of the best defensive lines in football. And if you can bring back Za'Darius Smith and you can go out and get somebody like a DJ Reader who at this moment, while I'm talking, is still available. If you can add somebody like that and then also bring back some other guys to that defensive tackle rotation, I really do think that you have something brewing there. Hear that Browns defensive line, something real special brewing there. Now, another piece of news that dropped during the day is that the Browns also brought back Maurice Hurst. Now, this isn't that much of a surprise. We all felt like the Browns were going to try to bring back Maurice Hurst. They bring him back on a 1-year deal worth up to $3.2 million. Happy for Maurice Hurst. He finally was able to stay healthy for most of the year. It's been a very long time since he was able to do that. When he's healthy, he's productive. I mean, it's been that his entire career. The question is health. Hopefully his health has turned a corner where he can continue to stay healthy for this team and continue to produce, because he's an important piece off that rotation for the Cleveland Browns. Now, we'll see what happens with Shelby Harris. I think that's probably a April, May, June, July thing, more so than a first week of free agency thing with Shelby Harris. We'll see. You got to remember, Shelby Harris was not signed to a team until he signed with Cleveland in August, I believe. It was late in camp. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that pops up again with veteran players, the caliber of Shelby Harris, who have had the reputation that Shelby has had. So a good, solid veteran player. Sometimes they tend to wait till later to make their official decision. But I think the Browns will have some room to go after Shelby Harris. And I think they still have some room to maybe see what's up with the DJ Reader, right? If they can get DJ Reader under the right number, they might feel like the combination of having a DJ Reader and a Za'Darius Smith might be something that's real beneficial. And I know some people are going to be down on Zadarius Smith because the sack numbers were not great for him last year. And there's something to that. I think he missed a lot of tackles, especially behind the line of scrimmage last year, more than I think he would be comfortable with for a regular year for him. I don't think that he looks as this year, sees his pressure numbers, which are pretty damn good. His pressure numbers were fantastic this year, and is satisfied with how that season went. I think he looks at this season as there was a lot of missed opportunities for him to take advantage of. Yeah, he won his one-on-ones. He's still that guy at the line of scrimmage. He can win and get pressure. I think if you're Za'Darius Smith, where you want to kind of capitalize where you didn't capitalize last year, was just finishing some of those plays, had a lot of missed tackles behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, I think he would have been at like 9 sacks if he just tackles in just the Seattle game alone. And then I think the Denver game was another game where he had a lot of missed tackles behind the line of scrimmage that probably should have been sacks. So I think, honestly, in year 2, Za'Darius Smith's going to be much better for this team. I think his sack numbers will be much closer to what we expect from Za'Darius Smith. And I think that another year with that tool set for Jim Schwartz, he'll figure out some other ways to utilize Za'Darius Smith. So they'll figure out something there. I do think that they need one more defensive tackle, right? If you could bring back Shelby Harris and then sign a DJ Reader or somebody you feel that can be a bit of a hellraiser on the defensive line from the interior position, hell, I wouldn't mind kicking the tires and seeing what Larry Ogunjobi's doing, like if it comes to it, because we know he can get pressure. Not the greatest run defender in the world, but he's really gotten better at that in his last 2 stops with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. So I think that this is about what people should be expecting. I know there were rumors, and there were serious rumors. I think the Browns were really serious about going after somebody like Christian Wilkins, but I think once that price tag got up to 27, I don't think that that's something that the Browns wanted to do. I don't think that's something that made sense to them. I know we talked about them kind of sacrificing some flexibility for next year to make sure that they win this year. But I don't know, when they did the math, hey, the sacrifices we're going to have to make to bring in a Christian Wilkins at $27.5 million, they didn't feel like that made them a better football team at the end of the day. They felt like it would be more worthwhile to use $24 million, maybe 12 on Zadarius and then 12 on a DJ Reader or something like that to kind of spread it out, have more bodies on that defensive line, because also the Raiders were willing to pay that money for Christian Wilkins because they really need somebody to kind of pair with Max Crosby. The Browns have Myles Garrett, who you really don't got to pair with anybody, but you can pair him already with Za'Darius Smith for 12, and then you can add some additional pieces. You also have Obo Okoronkwo and Alex Wright, so you got pretty good edge depth there. Alex Wright can also go inside, outside. I really like where this defensive tackle room is. If you can just add one more body, I think it goes from one of the best defensive line rooms in the NFL to the best defensive line room. Like if you can get like a DJ Reader, I think that would put it over the top. Really good things for the Cleveland Browns. I think these are good, solid moves. I know it's not the sexy thing, right? We all kind of wanted that sexy thing to bring in, like a Christian Wilkins or a new name. But bringing back Za'Darius Smith is a win for this defense. Bringing back Maurice Hurst is a win for this defense. And then you are also able to bring in Jerry Jeudy on pretty low money too. And that might be able to pay dividends down the line because, you know, if Jerry Jeudy blows up this year, you can have a young wide receiver in Elijah Moore, and then you can move on from Coop if need be, put Jerry Jeudy in Coop's spot, and then have a refreshed, reloaded wide receiver core like that. So, and you still got Cedric Tillman, you still got David Bell, you still got all these young guys around. Now, I know Devontae Parker got released. I know Aaron Jones got released. There were some moves that were made as a coincidence of some of the bigger moves that were going on today that might have a wrinkle effect with the Cleveland Browns. And I think that's important to watch. The Browns are patient when it comes to free agency, when it comes to getting a player that they like. We saw this with Elijah Moore, right? We heard them reports a couple years ago. Nah, we ain't going to do it, okay? We even saw this. Let's go even further back. Let's go all the way back to 2020. Baker Mayfield has that great year, but what were the reports after Baker Mayfield had that good year? Hey, the Browns are interested in Deshaun Watson. Hey, the Browns are interested in Aaron Rodgers. And at the time, we thought it was ridiculous. Now that we're more familiar with Andrew Berry and how he operates, it doesn't seem that ridiculous, right? But then they waited until Deshaun Watson was available, went after Deshaun Watson. And then you look at other guys, Elijah Moore. You know, we heard rumors about the Browns wanting to get Elijah Moore for years. And then they waited till the price was right. They got Elijah Moore. Same exact thing happened with Jerry Jeudy. And the same thing will happen with a bunch of different free agency targets as they watch some of the bigger moves, right? The Browns weren't going to spend $35 million a year for a player, or $30 or $28 million a year for a player. But when you do try to sign somebody and you sign them for $30 million, for 25, or you sign a running back for 14 or 12, that means that those teams might have to move things around. That means that those teams might have to let some guys go. That means that some guys who were free agents, their market might be affected. And that's where Andrew Berry hops out the shadow and offers a team-friendly deal to somebody that might make a ton of sense for the Cleveland Browns. So watch out with that, right? The Browns aren't going to be the first one to offer the most money. I don't think that's going to be how they operate this free agency period. They're going to be willing to spend money for sure, but they're going to want to spend it smartly because they do want to bring back JOK. They do have some guys next year that they're thinking about, right? They're thinking about Martin Emerson's money. They're thinking about giving another extension to Myles Garrett. That's going to have to happen down the line, right? Like, they got some things to plan for in the future. That doesn't mean that they're stuck, but it does mean that they're going to be smart about this. The Browns have been able to outspend the rest of the NFL or be one of the top spending teams when it comes to cash by a significant margin. I believe they spend like $290 million on the roster every year. They're able to do that because they're patient, because they're smart, and because they don't really bend on their structures of their deal. They offer their deals, and their deals are their deals. And that's what you're going to get from them. And that means that when it comes to stuff like this, we're all kind of impatient when it comes to free agency, but the Browns are going to wait. They're going to see how things play out. They're going to play off of certain things. And then when they see something they like and it makes sense, they will be aggressive in going after it, but they're not going to try to force it. Right? The Browns are pretty smooth operators when it comes to that kind of thing. Andrew Berry's not going to want to be overpaying. He's not going to be in this market of guys that are going to be overpaying for things. And I think that's going to be a thing to watch going forward. But that's day one so far, the Browns free agency period. Hopefully Andrew Berry does not do anything to ruin this video from the time I hit end record and this thing gets uploaded to you. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.